Rachel Hogan Carr, Director of the Nurture Nature Center in Eastern Pennsylvania. And Rachel will be talking about the results of a collaborative project on flood risk and uncertainty, assessing the National Weather Service's forecast and warning tools. So let me pass it over to Rachel.
Thank you so much, Jeff. It's great to be on and talking with everyone today. I'm talking about a project that I've been able to present to a few Weather Service and NOAA audiences, and it seems to have been of interest, and I've gotten really great questions, so I'm glad to be able to share some of the details with Eastern Region folks today. This project, Flood Risk and Uncertainty, Assessing the National Weather Service's Flood Forecast and Warning Tools, it was a specific social science study that was one of 4 that was funded to look at decision-making during extreme weather events. And so I'll talk a little bit about that, but before I do, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Nurture Nature Center, we're a nonprofit organization based in Easton, Pennsylvania, and we've been working since about 2007 and early 2008 on a variety of outreach and education projects about flooding, and most recently have been conducting this and another social science research study. And the role that we have come to play over the course of the years is something of a mediator, and so you see our Nurture Nature Center logo in between 2 boxes. And so on the one hand, I've had the great fortune of working with a lot of National Weather Service and other experts in the area of flooding over the past few years, including others from NOAA and other areas, to learn what the critical information is that people need to know during acute weather events and emergencies, including flooding. And simultaneously, Nurture Nature Center has a beautiful historic facility in downtown Easton, and where we have a lot of community events, and we've done a lot of education and outreach on the ground with communities. So we've talked a lot with public audiences who have been flooded and understand what they need to know. And Nurture Nature Center has had this neat role of sharing and facilitating information between those 2 audiences so that we can help the National Weather Service and other agencies to better communicate their messages to the public, and we can help the public to understand and become informed about the things that they need to know and better educated about their risk. And Nurture Nature Center was formed in response to repetitive flooding in the Delaware River Basin in 2004, 2005, and 2006. We're at the juncture of the Delaware and Lehigh Rivers, and 3 times in 22 months, half of our historic downtown business district was underwater significantly. And the foundation, Nurture Nature Foundation, formed Nurture Nature Center in response to that. And one of the early projects that we did back then, may be somewhat familiar to you, was done with National Weather Service partners. We created the Focus on Floods education campaign. And some of the materials that you see at the bottom of the screen are from that campaign. We did an animated video, which you see a still from there where it says floods happen, lessen the loss. And we did a What's Your Number campaign that helped people to identify their location at the stream gauges and understand that they could use the Advanced Hydrologic Prediction Service in order to monitor the flood levels there. And this was part of a 4-state outreach campaign in the 4 states of the Delaware River Basin. And so if the name rings a bell, it's probably from those materials, which have now been and continue to be widely distributed by Weather Service and other county emergency management agencies and others. This project I'm talking about specifically today is part of the Weather Ready Nation initiative. It was, as I said, one of 4 awarded in 2012, and it was managed through the Office of Weather and Air Quality in the Office of Oceanic and Atmospheric Research. And we had good company with some of the other grants that looked at things like tornadoes and the use of Twitter and the role of and some of the perceptions of emergency managers. And ours was the flood-focused project. Our partners on this project were East Carolina University, including a hazards researcher there named Dr. Burl Montz, who worked a lot in the Binghamton office. So if that name rings a bell to any people in Eastern Region, she's worked with the Binghamton office in the past, where she was 30 years located up there. And also, of course, our friends at the Mid-Atlantic River Forecast Center and the WFOs in Mount Holly and Binghamton. And we also have assistance from RMC Research Corporation, which is an evaluative firm that helps us to synthesize our findings. And the issue that we're looking at with this project is specifically one that's very familiar to you, which is that despite the tremendous amounts of timely and accurate data that the Weather Service issues, people often still don't respond the way they should to protect life and property. And here you see Gary Zatkowski from the Mount Holly office. This is a still from a video that is on our website for this project. And here he's describing the changes that he's seen in his career. And particularly in this moment, he's talking about tornadoes and how lead time for tornadoes has advanced so tremendously, and yet people are still not necessarily taking that extra time and using it to take the proper steps to protect themselves. And so he's identifying that social science is really the next frontier in many ways for helping to achieve National Weather Service's mission. And he says, as it states there, what we need now is to package and communicate weather warning information so people understand it and take the right action with the time they're given. And our project looked specifically at the Delaware River Basin, so that was our target audience, but I think a lot of the findings will be helpful for those in other regions as well. But our research questions were, how do people living in the Delaware River Basin understand and use National Weather Service products and services in understanding flood risk? And specifically, what improvements to National Weather Service products would better motivate people to take flood preparedness and response actions? So it's really this second question. The first question is really trying to get a baseline understanding of what tools people are using and how they're using what's being put out there. But the meat of it, as far as I'm concerned, is in this second part. How can we improve these products? And I like to point out that we want to improve them in two ways. One, so that they're more easily understood. In our outreach and education campaign focused on floods and in other work, we understand that people rely heavily on Weather Service tools and at the same time often don't understand them properly. So we want there to be better understanding of what the products are telling them. But more importantly, or equally importantly, we're looking to see how can they be improved so that they better motivate people to take action. We can improve understanding of the risk, but that may not in itself be sufficient to motivate action. So we wanted to look at ways and talk with users of these products about what motivates them to take action when they see these tools. And so we looked at the following products, and you'll be familiar with all of these: the Advanced Hydrologic Prediction Service, flood forecast watches and warnings, and we had some flash flooding, and of course the Meteorological Model-Based Ensemble Forecast System. This is the system that demonstrates uncertainty in forecasts. And the idea with the last piece in particular was to see whether or not this MMEFS system would have any utility for residential users. We know that emergency managers are using this and getting value out of it, but the question was, would this have utility for non-trained, non-professional users? And we had focus groups. What we did is a combination of focus groups and surveys, and we had in Easton, Pennsylvania, and Lambertville, New Jersey. And so we did a total of 8 focus groups in 2 rounds. We had 4 in Easton and 4 in Lambertville. We chose those communities because they had somewhat different demographics. They had different flooding issues. They both flooded they're both highly flood-prone communities that suffered a lot during 2004, 5, and 6. But we wanted to see if there was any difference in the way a more rural community like Lambertville might use them as opposed to a community like Easton, which has more urban characteristics. And so we exposed 4 groups of these people to an extreme flood scenario, and Patty Winnick and Peter Honored and others named this flood, named this hurricane Hurricane Rachel after me. So I think that's the only award I'll ever get named after me is a hurricane. But it was a 7-day scenario when Hurricane Rachel is coming up the East Coast, and during this 7-day scenario, we exposed the participants to the range of products that would be issued during such an event. And these were hurricane cones and hydrographs, the river flood outlooks, QPFs, flood watch and warnings, and the ensemble forecast showing uncertainty. And what we knew that the audience didn't know is that this hurricane was this hurricane scenario resulted in the same level of flooding that happened during the flood of record in here in 1955. So they essentially recreated the levels of flooding that happened in 1955. And then we facilitated a discussion about the tools as they came out on each day. We had about 15 participants per session average. The majority of these people were flood-affected individuals who had some serious stake in the issue, had experienced a flood, or lived in a community that had flooded. They were more familiar users. We had some who had very little understanding, and that was good to throw in the mix, but on the whole, these were people that had had some experience with using these tools. They gave us feedback about the timing of the products, when they wanted to receive them, the graphic design and visual clarity, the ways that the products motivated action, and they gave specific examples about how when they saw certain products, they recalled taking certain action, and importantly also how they shared the information with others. So we have some summary kind of findings. The draft final report is going to be released very soon. I have a copy on my desk here that I'm editing, and we need to format and insert our figures, but it'll be out very soon. But I feel I can share with you the summary findings from this product that I think are of interest. And one of the key takeaways that I think will matter to your to this audience is that river levels matter tremendously. The hydrograph was the highest ranked product almost every time, and people loved it. They said it was very clear, easy to read, very useful. It had high results for visual clarity. They liked the location specificity, that it was at the Delaware River at Easton. It was a point and place that they could locate. They liked it so much that we actually suggested you link every flood product to the hydrograph. Routinely, when we would expose people to this product, we'd say, now what do you do upon, when we would expose people to other products, we would say, what do you do upon seeing this product? And they would say, check the hydrograph. They spoke about it in really loving terms, that I love this product, it's my Bible, it's my go-to, I check it 10 times a day, I have it bookmarked. So this was really a clear winner, and for the reasons that I specified. Another issue that came through really loudly and clearly was the use of color. That color in graphics can help or hurt people's understanding of risks. This QPF was not really the most favorite product. However, people really did like the use of color in this product. They felt like it was very helpful. They understood the severity of the issue. The use of red in this product helped them to identify where the serious amounts of rainfall were expected to be very quickly. So this was a case where they felt like color worked very well. There were other instances where there was very confusing use of color for the participants, and these included the inundation maps and the significant river flood outlooks, which I'll get to. And then there were cases where a lack of color was also caused confusion for people. So in the flood watches and warnings, we heard routinely that people wanted the important information to be called out in bold and red. Our flood watch and warning had a section that indicated that there would be 5 to 7 inches of rain in a short period of time, and people said, why is that not in red? Routinely, people wanted the most severe information, the actionable information, to be listed to them in red. So the lack of that created some difficulty for people. On this one here, we're looking at the significant river flood outlook. This is a sample from this scenario, and the takeaways from this were that although this product offered to people exactly what they said they wanted, which was advanced lead time about the possibility of flooding in their area, when we presented it to them, almost uniformly people said they would take no action and they would do nothing because this product meant nothing to them. Many people use that phrase, it means nothing to me. And when we drilled down a little bit about why they say that, they indicated that the lack of geographic specificity was the biggest issue on this. They couldn't understand what the geography of this product was. They couldn't find themselves easily on the map. They couldn't understand why there was an orange barrier and why there was a black barrier around the region. They spent a lot of time trying to figure out if the orange outline was the Delaware River Basin, or if it was just the area where the rain was going to fall, why was nothing going to happen on the other side. And also, they had a lot of difficulty translating the patterning on this. They couldn't distinguish the difference between whether that was flooding was possible or likely. They couldn't tell the hash marks. And it had this inadvertent effect of causing people to believe that the areas around the bay were flooding and the areas on the perimeter of this map were flooding, because where the outlining is close together, it looks bright red, if you can see that, and people read that as the red from the legend that significant river flooding is occurring or imminent. So multiple people said, oh, so it's already flooding in some of those places on the coast. which was in fact not the case. So there was serious confusion for this one, but it really drove home this and in other products that the use of geographic specificity everywhere possible is really critical. People want to see their community name. They wanted to hear their community name in order to determine that the information they were seeing was relevant to them. So also uncertainty. The question here, this was called flood risk and uncertainty, and the question is, how does the public understand messages of uncertainty? Do they want messages of uncertainty? How do they act upon them? And so we showed the current suite of graphics that demonstrate this uncertainty in forecasts for the rivers. And down below, across the bottom, are the three types that we showed. These are three different styles of presenting uncertainty information through the MMEFS system, with the bar and whisker and the spaghetti graph and the traditional dot and line. And fairly uniformly, I feel I could say almost absolutely, people could not extract any information from these graphics at all. They could not begin to even tell us what they thought the graphics were intended to show. So they laughed upon seeing these or groaned or something, but they all said, well, that might be great for meteorologists, but not for folks like me. And as we explored it a little bit deeper, we saw where some of their confusion was. And they weren't certain whether or not uncertainty information was going to be very helpful. But there was enough interest in the uncertainty information when we explained to people how it could work and why it would work, that we included this in the suite of products that we were going to revamp. And I'll just give you as an explanation to show linkages between products. On the right-hand side, you see the product that is the dot and line, the GEFS-based stage simulations probability of exceedance plot. So this one, interestingly, confused people because it appeared like a hydrograph in their mind. They thought it was, and so they thought that the river levels were getting very high as it moved over toward the right, that it was going up to 11 feet. Well, in fact, as it goes over, the chance of it reaching that is dropping significantly, but they weren't taking the time and understanding those particular details. The titles on these products were really confounding to people, as you can understand. They didn't know what they meant. So these were among this suite of products that we decided to redesign and retest. And we did this for most of the products. We did not redesign or we did retest, but we did not redesign the flood inundation map. But the rest of them we did, and I'll show you some examples of these. Here is an example draft mocked-up hydrograph. Because this was the most loved one, we didn't need to make really dramatic overhauls to it, but there were confusions even in round one for people about how this product worked. And so on the right-hand side, you can see how we redesigned it. We used changes in color between the observed and forecast areas, so we shaded out the observed area a bit and called out that the right-hand side was forecast. That was a confusion for people. They didn't quite understand the distinction between the observed and forecast sections. We added a legend, and this is really a fairly simple step, I think, and really critical on so many of the products. People said, well, that might be helpful, but I need a legend to tell me what the items mean. And so people did not intuitively really understand what major, moderate, and minor flooding meant. The words weren't clear to them. They got confused between them in much the same way that they do between watch and warning. They didn't know where the action level, or what action level meant. Is that where they were supposed to take action? And why isn't action higher than major? I would take, and say they were confused. So we added those. We took away some of the Zulu time and just used the non-Zulu time. So that would have to be a consideration for each region, but it very much helped clarity for people. So we tried to narrow out some of the data, took out the watermark, and also importantly, we linked up at the top and created a system with multiple products where products could have interactivity between each other, because this was requested routinely. So you see at the bar that says prepare now, flooding is possible in the vicinity of this stream gauge, click for details. There's a way to link between watches and warnings and hydrograph and go back and forth. We proposed that watch language would be indicated in orange colors and warning language would be indicated in red. So we have a mock-up of this also where it says act now with a red bar once a warning is in effect. The second mocked-up product that I wanted to show you was this uncertainty graphic. I had showed you in round one what it looked like. Here's an example. I'm showing you one. We tested multiple of these revisions, so we retested a few different styles, and this was the one that people liked the most, so I'm showing it to you because it seemed to be the winner. But when we presented this product as opposed to the version on the left in the round two focus groups, we kept the scenario, I should clarify, we kept the scenario exactly the same, except we retested the products with new visual products. People really began to understand what this product was about. They were able to begin to extract information. They were able to make guesses about what they were supposed to understand from it. The use of the legend was really very helpful. The use of color in describing the range of certainty in the forecasted flood levels worked very well. You can see we made changes to the title, the 7-day river level probabilities. We had talked with first-round participants at length about what some of these products should be called so that they could understand them. And we also put minor descriptions, small descriptions of the key information at the top of the products. Routinely, people said, I want to see the graphic, but could you also tell me in a sentence or two what's happening? So I can get the summary in a sentence or two and then look at the product. And so this is what we mocked up here, and this worked significantly better for public audiences. Same thing with the significant river flood outlook. We had a really heightened understanding of this product and intention to act upon seeing this one. So you see off to the right, the mocked-up version uses colors that greater distinguish the threat levels. So possible, likely, and imminent are now easy to distinguish. We added geographic place names. We also gave a sentence up at the top in red where the warning language would be that the outlook shows the potential for damaging and dangerous flooding to occur. We changed the title of this product to 5-day river flood outlook so people were able to better understand that. We removed almost entirely the use of the word significant because people indicated and have indicated in previous social science studies that significant is not a meaningful word. It's used too frequently and they don't really know what it means. So we changed it to an impact-based term of damaging river flood possible, damaging river flood likely, and damaging river flood imminent, which seemed to work much better for people. So we're now in the process of finalizing the paper about this and writing a journal article that we'll be submitting for peer review, and we've been approved to do the submission process. We'll also be putting together 3 5-minute videos on our website so for 3 audiences. There'll be one designed for NOAA and Weather Service people that will summarize the project in a few minutes online. We're also going to be doing one for the public to help them use these products better, and one for emergency managers so that they can get some explanation about how important their role is in communicating these to the public. That was one of the interesting takeaways that's being reinforced in another study we're doing right now, that so much of this information is important to them, and it becomes even more important when it's delivered by a local community representative. So if this information gets passed through emergency managers, it seems to bear quite a bit of weight. So we're doing a video specifically for them as well. We've been doing a number of webinars and speaking presentations, and we will be designing a series of educational materials that we can share and that will be used for National Weather Service audiences for outreach to the public. Those are in design now. Our website for the project is socialscience.focusonfloods.org, where we already have a research bibliography on social science. So if you're interested in finding some more references about some of this work or want to learn more and look up more, you can look on there. And it's the place where we'll post the final report ultimately also. And the success of this project has led to us to take on a second one with NOAA Sea Grant through the NOAA New Jersey Sea Grant Consortium. And this is doing a similar look at coastal flood forecast and warning tools, and specifically the use of emergency briefing packages. And we just completed the second round of those focus groups on Monday of this week, actually, in Brick Township, and those are working with Ocean and Monmouth County residents to see how they similarly process information coming to them about coastal flood risk. And we'll be releasing the findings of those by April. So I'm happy to take any questions from people that they may have.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Any questions out there?
This is Patty. I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to add how much that the Weather Service got out of this project. I mean, it's really great that this came right after the all hands with our director, and he was talking about CSS was just about, the highest priority for us, and this just shows that you can't assume that you know how people are understanding our information, and the simplest things like putting a town name on a map and how much that can help people. These are things, that are easy to put in and add, and not just for river forecasting, but any kind of severe weather or regular forecast, we could incorporate this feedback. So I just wanted to thank Rachel and everybody at Nurture Nature Center and East Carolina and the investigators, and also Mount Holly and Binghamton. I mean, we all learned from each other, and we made good contacts, and the work was just extraordinary. I mean, all of these things are easily implemented.
Yeah, this is Peter at MARC. I just wanted to point out that the Eastern Region Annual Operating Plan does include an action item to implement these recommended changes into the MMEFS products this year. So we will be moving forward with at least looking at all the results of this study and seeing what we can implement into MMEFS before the end of the year. The AHAPS changes will probably take a little longer, but we do have plans to at least present these results and ask headquarters to implement as many of the recommendations as possible.
Yeah, this is Scott over at the Missouri Basin River Forecast Center. Would it be possible to send this out to the different field offices of the Weather Service, this presentation?
Yeah, well, Jeff said that it's recorded, but he did, we are trying to get a national, hydro program webinar, too, for this, but yeah, there's going to be the recorded version.
Okay. Absolutely, and I'm also doing a webinar for Western Region later this month also.
Oh, and the National Silver Jackets, too.
And the National Silver Jackets also, yes, that's right. Yeah, that one's coming up soon also, next week, I think.
I also wanted to thank Jeff Wallstreicher because he sends out these grant opportunities to all of us, and these are really good things to take advantage of, and if you can work with a nonprofit like the Nurture Nature Center, I mean, that's the way to go.
Yeah, we had a great time doing this project, and Patty when she summarized it, hit on one of the key points that a lot of these findings, I think, would are things that could be implemented without even product overhauls in terms of, if you're writing briefing packages or have some leeway in your products, that the use of red for color, the need for geographic specificity wherever possible. I'm really struck by how important that key point was. I've always thought the Significant River Flood Outlook was a really great product. I've used it for years. It's the first chance I know to keep a heads up that there was a chance of flooding coming. And people specifically said that after we had shown it to them later in the study, they said, well, we wish we had been given some notice that this flood was happening sooner. And we flip back and say, well, here it was. We did show that a few days ago. But even when they were presented with it, they didn't see it as that, which is really meaningful and surprised me. But very clearly, the fact that they weren't taking away the information the way that made them take action. So, but simple changes were able to help that significantly.
Yeah, I agree. There's some very fundamental and foundational insights here that I think can be applied not just to flooding, but to our whole range of hazards, and drills down even to something as compact as our social media posts.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so I really like to thank you both, for your efforts on this project and your willingness to share it with us today. Any other questions or comments for Rachel?
This is Al Cope in Mount Holly, the weather office. I was wondering, when you created new versions of the products like the probabilistic forecast, did you show them to the same people who saw the old products, or were you showing them to a new set of people?
Sorry, I should have clarified that. A new set of people. Yeah, so the two groups of people went through the exact same scenario. We didn't change any of the presentation except for the physical products themselves. So what we would do is say it's day T-7 and the National Hurricane Center has announced that there's a hurricane forming off, in the Caribbean somewhere. I can't remember exactly how it is. And we'd stop and say, what are you doing with this information? And a side note, it wasn't one of those products that we studied, but was included in our scenario. The cone, the hurricane cone, was another top favorite. People really felt very familiar and comfortable with that product also. That and the hydrograph were the two most familiar to them. And so we would stop after each day and say, these were the products that were released this day. The Weather Service released this, and this. And what steps are you taking? Have you seen these before? Are you familiar with them? What do you think that these products are telling you? Are you talking about them with friends or family? And we did that same exact scenario with round 1 and round 2, but the participants of round 2 were a new batch. So they were seeing differently presented products.
Yeah. Do you think the products can be made self-explanatory, or will there need to be some training in how to use them? I mean, for the general public.
For the general public? Well, it depends on which ones. I mean, to the degree possible, you want them to be as self-explanatory as possible. My honest opinion is that the MMEFS products would benefit from and we include that here, a click here for more information about this product. I think if the legends are clear, if there's, in many of the products for this, and now for the coastal round also, we included a box for a forecaster's note. And one thing that's become clear is that the tone of the forecaster and the clarification of what's happening really will improve the use of a product. So if a forecaster's note is possible in a product where a forecaster could quickly say, this graphic is showing the potential rise of the river up to 12 feet by midnight on Saturday, then the product becomes much more self-explanatory, I think, and the other details can be absorbed. MMEFS, I'm not sure whether showing that level of uncertainty to untrained audiences would be self-explanatory. The first round, they really disliked them and thought that they were potentially dangerous at some degree and said, put them where only the emergency managers and people who are trained can see them, because they realized they were making such errors in their understanding that they were coming to completely wrong conclusions. But the second time around, they did much better. It was still difficult the second time around. It was still not their favorite product. It went up, though. It went from being the least favorite product, it went up a few notches in their preference rating, which I thought was interesting. I didn't think it would move up from the bottom, but they did, and a lot of people said, uncertainty information could be really helpful to me. I'd like to be a more educated consumer, but...
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Well, thank you very much, Rachel. We really appreciate your presentation.
Great, thank you.